Welcome back to Recreate This Look, and this week we're doing something completely different. I am not only doing two different people, but I'm doing multiple looks for those two different people. I tried to do this a little bit differently this week because I didn't do a video last week, and I was gonna do Rhoda and then Mary anyway. So I thought, well, why not just do a twofer and do them at the same time. Let's get started by talking about Valerie Harper, who is Rhoda. She is the actress who played Rhoda. First thing I'm gonna do is use this Billion Dollar Brows clear brow gel that I got in my BoxyCharm. Gonna line my eyes really quick with the pencil side of the Huda Beauty dual liner. If you've ever watched the Mary Tyler Moore Show, you know Rhoda starts out being the, abrasive upstairs neighbor who isn't super friendly, is from New York, and she's kind of the perfect opposite of Mary. So where Mary is sweet and kind and kind of naive, Rhoda is street smart and tough and kind of aggressive and super funny. And so they really play off each other very well, in my opinion. Rhoda ends up being, Mary's best friend. Using the Violet Voss Essentials 2 palette, and there is a couple of shades in this palette that I'm gonna be using. This beige and this clay color. I'm gonna be using those, and possibly this chocolate brown color over here. So Valerie Harper was actually a pretty successful stage actress when she was told to go in and audition for the Mary Tyler Moore Show. She said in an interview that she really loved the script. She thought it was super funny. They kind of made her character very insecure, kind of made her character a little bit more self-deprecating. She makes fun of herself constantly. When her mother comes to visit, there is a very specific storyline that has to do with her and her mother's relationship. And Rhoda is just one of those people that has a lot of one-liners, a lot of very, quick zingers. There is a very funny scene in the first season where Mary has her first of many disastrous dinner parties. Rhoda immediately has the best jokes in the whole episode. The fun part about the Rhoda storyline is that she finally gets her life together, basically, because for a lot of the show, she is kind of in Mary's shadow. She's not as successful as Mary. She's not as pretty as Mary, supposedly. She's beautiful, but in the show, they're not in competition, but you see some of that being a little bit of a strain on their friendship. And then at the end of the episode, they always come back together. They have a little falling out and then they make up, or they have a little misunderstanding and then they get it together, right? So the cool thing about her storyline is that she decides to go back to New York. Rhoda's spin-off show, which was called Rhoda, immediately set a record with the first episode because it was the first debut premiere episode of a series to receive a #1 Nielsen rating. Actually beat out Monday Night Football. The first season shows Rhoda, of course, meeting Joe in the first episode, and then follows their relationship until the wedding. The wedding happens in the first season, and that episode was an hour long, and it broke several television records. It was the highest rated television episode of the 1970s, a record that was held until the miniseries Roots took that title in 1977. People held parties in their homes to watch the wedding, and so it was a pretty big deal for Rhoda to get married because she was such a beloved character, and people were super excited for this fictional character to actually get married because we had seen her on Mary Tyler Moore kind of go from this maybe not so glamorous girl, and we watched her morph into this super independent, confident woman who found her love of her life, right? A lot of the cast members from Mary Tyler Moore were on that wedding episode. What you'll notice about Rhoda, the series, is that it is not exactly a carbon copy of the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and that's what I liked about it. It was different. It's a little bit kookier, a little bit funkier. They really lean into her family. There's a lot of running gags, a lot of running jokes throughout the show, especially when it has to do with her doorman, who, for those of you who know who Garfield the cat is, the voice of John and the voice of her doorman are the same person. So that's a little bit of trivia for you. During the run of the Rhoda series, she and Joe actually divorce, spoiler alert. But if you read Valerie Harper's autobiography called I, Rhoda, she kind of gets into the reasoning why that happened. And you can look at it either way. You can look at it like that had never really been done on network TV before and they were breaking new ground and covering something that was actually happening in a lot of American households. Or you can look at it like the wedding was in the first season and got the biggest ratings, and so where do you really go from there? They can't just be happily married because that's gonna be boring. So what can they do to spice up the show? Break them up and then divorce. So you can look at it either way. Probably the truth is somewhere in the middle. So I'm gonna use the It Cosmetics Lash Blowout Mascara. And CBS actually canceled the show midway through its 5th season and left a lot of episodes unaired, which then ended up airing in syndication later on. These are the faux mink lashes from Ardell. Of course, Valerie Harper continued to be a working actress. They actually did a Mary and Rhoda TV movie that reunited their characters, and that was in the year 2000. Guest starred on many sitcoms over the years. She was very active in her charity work. She also played Tallulah Bankhead on Broadway briefly and was nominated for a Tony Award. If you have the opportunity, I highly recommend checking out Valerie Harper's book called I, Rhoda. It gives you a great insight into her life, her experience, and she really does talk about being on the Mary Tyler Moore Show a lot. She talks about her own sitcom a lot, and then she talks about all of the things she did after Rhoda was over. And so you kind of get a good idea of all of the stuff she did after she kind of put that character to bed and revisited it in 2000. And then she also talks about her battle with cancer. She was diagnosed in 2009 with lung cancer and continued to battle with it until she passed away in 2019. But she fought really hard to bring awareness to her condition and also to show that even though she was given months to live at one point, she surpassed that by years. And so I felt very inspired listening to the book. I listened to it on Audible, which I highly recommend because she is the one that narrates the book. She's the one that reads the book to you basically on Audible. It felt like a friend was telling me her life story, so I think you guys would really enjoy it. Now, since there are so many Rhoda looks, I am going to, let's just say there's going to be a little bit extra in this video than there normally is, okay? Besides the fact that it's a twofer. The writers of that show had a lot of fun with her character, writing for her character, finding her voice, and she was hilarious. And I love her. I love Rhoda. I will always and forever love and adore Rhoda. To transition into Mary, I'm gonna do a little bit of contouring just to change a little bit of the shape of my face, not too much. I just want to make it clear that I'm trying to be two different people, if that makes sense. And Mary Tyler Moore famously was Laura Petrie on the Dick Van Dyke Show, and in that series you could say that she was like a stereotypical housewife. Mary Tyler Moore really proved herself on the Dick Van Dyke Show to be very capable of physical comedy as well as what we know now as typical sitcom comedy. What made the Mary Tyler Moore Show a little bit different is that Mary Tyler Moore on the Mary Tyler Moore Show, which her character was named Mary Richards. She wasn't Mary Tyler Moore on the Mary Tyler Moore Show, she was Mary Richards. Either way, Mary on that show was not married. She was a single girl. The premise was that she broke off her engagement and moved to Minneapolis to start a new life. And it was one of the first sitcoms to have a female as the lead character, but she was not married. And it centered around her home life and her work life, which was a made-up TV station, and she worked in the newsroom. And from the very first episode, I would say that they tackled a lot of pretty important topics like equal pay between women and men, how women were treated in the workplace in the 70s. I don't think there was any other show that was really talking about those topics in that way at that time. You kind of saw her work her way up through the series. As the series went on, you saw her get promoted, you saw her take on new challenges at work, and all the while you saw her home life and her dating life. Her dating life was the source of many classic episodes, but really you could pick it up anywhere. There are so many awesome episodes. I would say start with Chuckles Bites the Dust. It's one of the most hilarious episodes of TV ever. Mary Richards' wardrobe on the Mary Tyler Moore Show is the stuff of legend. She wears the most beautiful clothes in the show. I really want to give credit to the makeup, hair, and costume departments, because without those, this show wouldn't have been as special as it was, because they were definitely a huge part of it. You got to see the fashions and the hair and the makeup in this show. Costume and wardrobe department are as follows: Leslie Hall, Donald McDonald, John Weitz, and Robert Lawson. Now let's talk about makeup and hair. Donna Cox, Ben Nye the third. Now if it's any relation to the Ben Nye that we know, that's amazing. Ray Steele, Barbara Lorenz, Ruby Ford, Linda Trainoff, Mary Keats, Pepper, just Pepper, Lola Kemp, and Janice D. Brandow. I think it's super important to recognize the artists that help make the looks that we enjoy so much on these shows. She went on to do multiple TV specials, variety shows, things of that nature. Tried to do other sitcoms, but they just didn't take off the way that the original did. And as time went on, she was asked to do a lot of cameos for other sitcoms. Mary was nominated for an Oscar for her role in the film Ordinary People. She also appeared in many TV movies, including Mary Rhoda, which we talked about before, and she actually wrote 2 memoirs about her life. After All, which was published in 1995, where she talks about her struggles with alcoholism, and Growing Up Again, Life, Loves, and Oh Yeah, Diabetes, which was published in 2009. She talks about living with type 1 diabetes. Mary was also very much involved in philanthropy and charity work. Towards the end of her life, she had a lot of health issues and ultimately passed away in 2017. Once Mary Tyler Moore was a hit, it opened the door for other sitcoms like it. So sitcoms where the main character didn't have to be married. Mary Tyler Moore is a joy to watch. She really made you fall in love with her, for sure. Like I said, you can find the show on Hulu. I am gonna use this lip oil from KAB. It's called Honeydew. So I will admit this episode was very chaotic. I don't know how this is gonna come out, but it's gonna come out because I refuse to miss another week. The relationship between Mary Tyler Moore and Valerie Harper and their characters, Mary and Rhoda, will make sense being in one video. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you sticking through this with me, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day. I will see you next week for another Recreate This Look.